slept with his best man before our wedding. He played the footage at the reception. Hey Reddit, my name is Lizzie. I'm female, 37 years old. I'm going to make this post be as brief as possible. So just a few weeks ago, everything was going as planned. I was engaged to be married to one of the most eligible bachelors in my small town, who may or may not have been the reason my business suddenly started doing well too. His name was Wyatt. He and I met through a frequent customer of mine who happened to be a friend of his and eventually my affair partner. From the onset, even before I met Wyatt, I had always thought Chris to be charming. I liked him, but he wasn't really a one-woman guy, and even if he was obviously not into me. Some days when I knew he'd come into my shop, I'd dress up and have my hair done neatly, and even avoid doing dirty saloon work the entire day, waiting for him. But he'd arrive later with some hot chic and ask me to attend to them. Every time he brought in a different girl, and each time he'd ask me to personally do their hair or their nails or whatever shit they wanted done. Eventually, I got tired and figured I should forget about men in general and focus on making my business work, building my own empire. The problem was I was getting old. I am still getting old. My aunties would ask me every time when I was bringing a real man to the house. My friends are all married and even have kids. It's not that I haven't had any men in my life at all. In fact, I've had quite a bunch of them, but they were never just right. They were either cheaters and liars, or just idiots who wanted to exploit me of the money I was barely even making. Of course, I frequented dating apps, but nothing was working there either. It was almost like there was no man right for me in this world. And even if there was, he was not interested in someone like me. But everything changed when Wyatt walked through my saloon door. He wasn't as handsome as Chris, but I think money can make someone shine like they're the most beautiful thing in this world. That's the major difference between him and Chris. He had a lot of money, and Chris only had enough to spend on women. You could say it was love at first sight, because despite the fact that he was forced by Chris to come to the salon, he came back almost every other day, and he always wanted me to attend to him. In fact, sometimes he just paid me for doing nothing, just sitting and talking to him. Word soon spread in the neighborhood that Wyatt had become a very loyal customer of mine, and more people started coming to my salon. The ladies always wanted to sit in the exact spot where Wyatt had sat when he came. In fact, sometimes, especially while he was still in, we had people waiting in long queues, usually ladies, just to be in the same place as Wyatt. My fellow hairdressers in the salon kept shipping Wyatt and I together, but I told them he probably just liked our services and it was nothing deep. Besides, my class was too low for someone like him to like me, but secretly, I wished I was wrong and that Wyatt was genuinely interested in me. After about 2 weeks, he asked me out on a date. I didn't even know how to respond because it was so sudden and straightforward. He told me he'd be at my house by 7. After he left, I wondered how he was going to get there when he didn't know the location. But obviously it wasn't a problem for someone like him. That night, I was so confused as to what to wear. I wanted to look my best, make an impression, but I was just so lost. I finally decided that it didn't matter what I wore. He either liked me or he didn't. There was no changing that. So I wore a simple but pretty black dress. The dinner was wonderful. And I don't just mean the food. I enjoyed being in his company a lot. And I saw the look on his face when I stepped out of my door before he said I looked really beautiful. I couldn't stop smiling the entire night. The dates became more frequent, and sometimes we even went on double dates with Chris and whichever girl he decided to bring along. Wyatt started showering me with gifts almost on a daily basis. By the time it got to a month, my closet couldn't contain them all. He finally asked me out, and of course I said yes. Because why not? I was glowing. He treated me so nicely even before we started dating, and not any less when we entered a full-blown relationship. He was like the dream man I'd always wished for. Everything was almost perfect. But then, there was still Chris. Thinking about it now, Chris shouldn't have been a problem. Wyatt had everything that he didn't. Money, fame, manners, loyalty, and he was just, Chris with more than just looks. But no matter how much I liked Wyatt and wanted our relationship to be perfect, I couldn't help but wonder why Chris never picked any interest in me. Until he did. Whenever I was with both of them and Wyatt stepped out leaving me alone with Chris, it was always so weird for me. I was usually tense and continuously looking away. I think Chris noticed this. He specialized in women, so he definitely noticed it. He started making advances at me, But thankfully, Wyatt always got back in time, so he never went far with it. But whenever I went home, I found my mind wandering and imagining what it would be like if just once Wyatt wasn't so timely. I never really thought about why Chris would want to betray his friend by sexually engaging with his girlfriend. It only dawned on me after everything fell apart that Wyatt was the only reason Chris wanted me in the first place. Wyatt paid me so much attention that Chris thought I was stealing his best friend away. Also, unknown to me, Wyatt spent so much on me that it made Chris jealous. So the plan was to use me to get money from Wyatt for himself and then dump me, and it worked almost perfectly for him. One night, I was in my house alone when Chris came knocking. He said he had something urgent to tell me and it couldn't wait till the next day. Then he blurted it out, claimed he'd loved me from day one but was always too shy to confess, until Wyatt got to me first. I was very surprised and even reluctant to believe him because he never gave off any signs. But he said that was the trick. He started asking me why else I thought he always brought girls to my salons and not the famous one across the street. I wanted to believe him, but a part of me knew he always brought them to mine because we were more affordable. He then said he also made me attend to them every time because he wanted me to get jealous, but I never reacted. The whole thing started to make sense somehow, and before I knew it, I fell for his scheme, and he kissed me that night before he left. I couldn't get my mind off the kiss and the confession itself. It was all I could think about throughout that night, and even the next day. Even when I met with Wyatt, I couldn't focus. I just wanted to see Chris again, but he hid himself away for a whole week. Each time my doorbell rang, I ran to the door hoping it was him, but he never came. I started to dismiss the whole idea and told myself I was probably being delusional, and Chris never came to my house that night to start with. But just around that time, he called. I didn't even bother to ask how he got my number. I was just glad that he finally reached out because I was worried sick. I then told him that I think we should be together, as in officially, since he liked me and I liked him too. But he wasn't in for it at all. He was almost getting angry that I would want to throw what I had with Wyatt away for him. But I told him that it wasn't just about him. It was about us and what makes us happy. He said he couldn't keep me happy because he didn't have the resources to, and I was better off with Wyatt than with him. And if I wanted us to go out so bad, it would have to be a secret. I liked Wyatt, he was a good man, and I didn't want to have to cheat on him. But I loved Chris, or so I thought. I really wanted him, sexually and otherwise. My other problem with Wyatt was that he wanted us to remain celibate until, but Chris was proposing something else. I figured I wasn't exactly betraying Wyatt. Me and him could do our celibacy thing when it came to us, while I could just have fun with Chris. And that's how Chris and I started going out secretly. But during the day, he acted like nothing happened between us. He still came to the shop with different girls as usual, except now he didn't insist that I attend to them. One time, I complained that I really did get jealous when I recently saw him with other women, but he said it was a disguise because it would be weird if people didn't see him with girls, and that even Wyatt might suspect something is happening. Not wanting to raise any suspension, I let the girl issue slide. But I noticed that while we're in bed together, most of what he does is tease me. We never really had sex. We could do every other thing but that. Sometimes it even got so bad that I begged him to do it, but whenever I mentioned it, he'd just get up and leave the whole thing altogether. Some days in between, my thighs ached so much that I had to do things my way after he left. During this period, Wyatt and I had been dating for 3 months already, and he had still not tried to touch me even once. Our kisses barely lasted a minute. One time I tried to seduce him and he got really mad at me for not trying to keep our relationship sacred just until we got married. This left me with my only other option, Chris, who would sexually tease me throughout and leave with money he'd make me ask Wyatt for. At this point, it was more like he was my main boyfriend and Wyatt was the side chick. And I was just so stupid. On my own, I never asked Wyatt for money or anything. He was already doing so much for me, and I didn't see any need to act ungrateful. But once Chris came into my life, everything changed. I started asking Wyatt for money a lot, and it even got to a point where he had to give me a card to take care of my expenses. One of my mistakes was sending large sums of money to Chris through that account. It just never occurred to me that Wyatt could be keeping track of my transactions. By this time, we were already engaged. Even though we were just a few months into the relationship, Wyatt wanted to get married to me quickly. My guess is he wanted to get me in bed so bad, but didn't want to ruin the whole celibacy thing. Also, Wyatt was a very straightforward man. He knew what he wanted, and at that time, it was me. Chris helped plan the proposal, pick the wedding ring and stuff, so it didn't come as much of a surprise. He'd told me everything already, and even though I wanted to end things with Wyatt earlier because of him, I was ever ready to say yes to his proposal, because I was getting old, and soon, no one would want me. Wyatt was my best chance, and I couldn't let that be ruined for me. I still badly wanted to have sex with Chris, even if it was just once before I got married. And it finally happened the night before my wedding. All my friends left me alone and said I needed my beauty sleep because early the next day, they'd be back. Plus, my apartment wasn't exactly big enough to contain a crowd. I invited Chris over that night, and I think he must have known what my intentions were. I was going to make him sleep with me by hook or by crook. As I opened the door to him, he must have read my body language then, and that's when he set the camera. Because I didn't notice him moving any other time. Well, to be fair, the lighting in the room wasn't exactly bright. I'm going for a romantic atmosphere kind of thing. At first he didn't even resist, but I think it was all part of his plan, because he teased me even more, didn't do anything major, just enough to turn me on. I was enjoying it all, and didn't notice when he got up and went to the door. But immediately I did, I ran up to him and tried to stop him. At first he resisted and kept saying I should let him go, but I didn't listen to him. I kept forcing myself on him through any means possible. I tried to engage him in a kiss, and when that didn't work, I took his hands to my boobies, and then my vagina area. When those didn't work, I dipped my hands in his trousers, thinking turning him on might be a way out. But what I didn't realize was that it was all a scheme. His plan to make it seem like I was entirely forcing myself on him, which was fairly true. But he made it seem like he wasn't the one who pulled me into this. Finally, after a lot of pressure, he gave me what I wanted. And I can't say it wasn't worth the wait. It was marvelous. It made sense while girls were always flocking around him over and over again, despite the fact that he wasn't rich. I wished that we would have sex again after that night, but I didn't want my infidelity to follow me into marriage. I knew it was the only night, so I used it to the maximum. By the time we were done with all the rounds, I was so exhausted, and it was past midnight already, and I slept off. When I woke up the next morning, he was gone, and I'm grateful for that because my girls knocking at the door is what woke me up. I could already imagine the look on their faces if they had seen Chris in my bed. The morning went by really quickly, and all the while, I couldn't stop thinking about my night with Chris. But I was also looking forward to something else. It was going to be Wyatt's and my first night together. I couldn't help but wonder what he was like in bed, and if he was nearly as good as Chris. But I convinced myself it wouldn't be long before I found out. The wedding itself was over, and we were at the reception already. I didn't notice until after it all, but everything was just weird. The way Wyatt and Chris were both acting. I should have known. Chris was avoiding any eye contact with me. In fact, he avoided any kind of contact with me the whole day, and Wyatt was observing me a bit too much. For Chris, I thought he figured he should keep his distance since I was now married. And as for Wyatt, I just thought he was having wild imaginations about the night we were going to spend together. But how wrong I was. Chris had given his best man speech, and a very emotional one at that. Everyone was still clapping when Wyatt suddenly got up, walked over to the master of ceremony, and whispered something in his ear. The MC then announced that the groom would also like to give a speech. When he started to speak, I couldn't stop blushing. He said when he first set his eyes on me, his heart told him I was the one, and he followed it. He felt like the luckiest man alive to have the most loyal and understanding woman ever. When he said that, I felt a little guilt about my night with Chris and every other night we spent together. But I told myself that that era had come to an end, and I was going to start a whole new life with my husband. But while I was still lost in my thoughts, I heard him say something like, only about a week ago did he start to suspect that following his heart might not have been his best option. I was stunned, wondering what exactly he was trying to say, or where he was headed with that. The whole hall went quiet. He went on to say that only a few hours ago did he fully confirm his suspicion that I was doing things behind his back. That's when he had my sex played through the projector for everyone to see. At first, it seemed like I was forcing myself on Chris, but that's because that's what Chris wanted to portray. I could see the little smirk on his face as the short clip was being played. I couldn't bring myself to move. It was all so embarrassing, and I couldn't even believe that Wyatt would agree to disgrace me like that. But just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, he played the full video, from the teasing to Chris acting like he wanted to leave, and then finally agreeing to sleep with me, of his own will. It kind of made the entire situation worse, but I felt a little bit better that they all saw Chris for who he was and not some kind of victim. I was still too ashamed to sit there, though. I had to run away. The marriage was obviously over before it could even start. All eyes were already on me. And as I ran out, some friends tried to follow me, but I entered a taxi before they could catch up. I couldn't stay at my place because I knew my family and friends would keep trying to find me, so I stopped picking calls and replying to texts. At some point, I turned the phone off altogether, but somehow Wyatt found me. I almost fainted when I opened the door and discovered it wasn't just room service. He looked at me like he really felt sorry for me, and truly, I looked miserable. I was even surprised he just came just to have a normal discussion with me, and not to ask me to return his gifts and money. He told me he started suspecting when he noticed I kept sending large amounts of money to a certain account, but he thought he was overthinking it. Then he added that it was a shame that I messed up what would have been a very beautiful marriage, and even my affair partner turned on me. That's when I discovered that Chris implanted a camera himself, but not the entire video was meant to reach Wyatt. How he got the full video, only he knows, but I'm glad he did. At least he knows Chris is a snake. Just when I was getting comfortable, he told me I should think he came to console me or anything. He asked if I had been to my salon lately to see my progress. I knew he was mocking me. There were no customers anymore. The only people that would visit it are those new in the area, and once they too heard what a whore the owner was, they stopped. Also, he wanted a divorce, and me giving my consent was non-negotiable. Not like I would have wanted to argue anyway. But the lawyer said we'd have to wait at least 6 months. We're waiting, but life is still so hard for me. I can barely feed anymore. At this rate, I might just go back to my auntie's. She may throw shades, but I know she can't lock me out. As for Chris, last I heard, the bastard left town. Wyatt is the one now changing women as frequently as he changes his tie. At least I did something for the girlies, because formerly, Wyatt would never spare them a glance. So, yeah, guys, that's my life right now. I just hope I'm able to stay alive up until the divorce period for Wyatt. He deserves that least. And yes, I also deserve everything that's happening to me, and probably worse. It's like I'd become a spinster/divorcee. Just great, no one's going to want me now. My life as I know it is pretty much over.